So Ace flew down to hang out with me for the weekend, and we thought it would be a good idea to do another podcast, not podcast, slash, you know, live video, whatever, since the Danger Cast no longer exists. But yeah, it's been awesome having Ace here this weekend. Got to throw a lot of knives, blew some shit up. What's going on, everybody? So we really don't have an agenda for anything to talk about, but, you know, I guess, I don't know, what could we talk about? We could talk about Delta2Alpha, you know, what we have available online now, like the extensive amount of items.
Well, let's go over some. We'll talk about some Shuriken stuff like that, and then we'll just kind of see where it goes, and then we'll try to make sure we grab some questions kind of in there. Okay. So we don't miss your questions, if you can just kind of save them until we ask, because otherwise they get pushed up in the feed, and then we're going to miss you, and we want to make sure we get to you. So probably, so over the last little while, I have really kind of ramped up my passion for Shuriken, doing some stuff with Mateus Bin from Bo-Shuriken.org. Been doing that for, you know, a year and a half or so. Mateus is either just getting back or about to come back from Japan. He's actually over there teaching, which is pretty cool. Being involved in that, and then going through and getting a chance to really kind of bring the designs back and kind of delve right into them. And then Shuriken is probably the only thing from a throwing perspective that I can really give Danger a run for his money on, which like is hard to do, right? So for me, I've had a chance to kind of spread some of the gospel Shuriken for the last little while. I got a chance to hang out with Pete from I Like Knives, kind of introduce that to him. And Shuriken are really interesting because initially people were like, oh, well, like whatever, it's just a spike, right? So these are 6mm MSR. You have, I think, a set of 10 of these. These are mainly what we're playing with. Yep. And it looks like it's kind of fairly simple, and I think a lot of people initially just kind of pass them over. These weigh about 42 grams, or about 1.5 ounces. And so you have everything from that to, this is a Nagishi Ryu design. This one was done by Rich over at Iga Tengu. We have a version of that. We call it the Rocket. His has a wrap on it. The biggest difference between ours and his is we don't do the wrap, and then in the back we have a hole. So ours, when you throw them, whistle, creates kind of a vortex stabilization, creates a drag behind it, same way as like when a semi goes by, right? And then you can also put the light in it. But very, very similar designs. They throw very similar. Now, what light are you talking about? Those knock lights. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have seen that, but they fit in there damn near perfectly, right? You just... I take a little piece of a plastic sandwich bag and I force them in there, and then I tear that off just so that way you can change them, because otherwise you got to make them too tight and you can't change them. Okay. So that's that. Like I said, we call this the Rocket. This one was done by Rich. He does a great job. And then so you wind up having kind of stuff that's fairly sophisticated and stuff that's fairly simple. And both of these are classic designs. This is an MSR 6mm. And so MSR is the Meifu Shinkake Ryu, which is one of the few like dedicated Shuriken schools out there that's still available. I like the Nagishi Ryu stuff. You wind up getting into, I don't know who made this one. This is an Uchibari, sometimes called comes from a school called Katori Shuta Ryu. You also see these in the Bujinkan and the Tagaka Ryu. So sorry, the lighting's terrible in here, but they're very similar. But this one's just straight all the way down. Yeah, this has a taper that starts in the middle and goes forward, and it also has a boat tail taper. And I don't know how well that's showing up for you. And then you wind up having, like this is a Chishin Ryu. I think this one's 8mm. And so this has that same taper that the Uchibari does, except it's straight in the back, so it changes a lot of your weight placement. And so the way that starts to move through the air is pretty interesting. Sure. And so it starts changing the balance. And one of the things that's interesting for me about Shuriken is with knives, you can, if you understand how to throw a knife, you kind of get an idea as to how to throw all knives, with slight deviations to it. But with Shuriken, like as an example, this is the murder hornet, right? And then this is the Maganur, or the giant dragonfly. So these two are the same size and almost the same weight, but are thrown it's a completely different experience to throw.
Yeah.
Right, and then this, the regular dragonfly, is just a shorter version of the giant dragonfly, and again, it's a different skill to throw it, and so each one kind of has a knack. So for me, I would almost argue that Shuriken and a Chinese equivalent of the Fei Biao, what makes them kind of interesting is being able to be good with one doesn't mean you know how to throw the others. And there's kind of a unique skill that goes, or a knack that goes with each one.
These are very different for me to throw because they're tip heavy and they taper so much. And you told me the key to that is just to hold very, very little, almost nothing. And lo and behold, it does work. It's weird. It's
kind of
opposite of what you would think, but it works.
The original dragonfly, these are smaller.
I like those better.
Yeah, and so what's interesting about this is I think these are like 130 grams or something like that. But I can show you a video of at 10 meters, it flies, it kind of starts to rotate over at about 5.5 meters, it turns flat and then just continues traveling straight. It just continues to move straight. And I mean, being able to throw it through a piece of 3/8 plywood. And so you wind up having this different skill set that winds up coming into it. When you have, like the ones that we were messing around with, the MSR ones, these are 42 grams or 1.5 ounces. To go through and to get that, to carry the weight into a target from, I mean, we were out, I think, 7 meters or so. To be able to do that is this trick, because you have to walk in this Goldilocks zone in which you need to be able to put enough force into this so it carries through the air. But if you overgas it, it starts to fishtail out, right? Like
over rotates big time.
Yeah, like it becomes unstable because you try to throw them too hard. So
yeah,
you wind up, in my opinion, throwing Shuriken is a higher art because there's so much more variation and it requires a softer hand. It's like using a double, like a double-edged or double-sided dagger grind butterfly knife. You can do it, but you got to have light hands, and there's this softness to it where if you try to go through and move that hard, you're gonna bleed.
Yeah.
So it's kind of your take on that. The Shuriken versus the knife.
Oh, Shuriken by far are more difficult, and especially because they're so versatile. You know, most knives they're pretty similar. You know, there's a dashi, there's this is the night train.
That's the bullet train.
Bullet train, sorry.
That's Pedro's.
Very similar, you know. Then here's just a Shuriken style.
Yeah, so that's Maui 80.
Yeah.
That's Maui 80's riff on the Bo-Dashi that we did.
Yeah.
And that was, I believe, that was a one-off that he did. So Fullard spine, I think that's 10 millimeter by
100% machined. Pretty amazing. But anyway, what I was saying is most knives throw very similar, especially if they're about the same weight and length. So Shuriken is a whole different animal, especially when you get into the lighter stuff. Like Ace said, it just takes a different, more delicate type of throw, and it's much more difficult in my opinion. Now the anomaly we need to address is Joel from,
Joel,
the professor.
Joel Jalapeno there, yeah?
Yes.
From Finland.
Yes, he throws his Shuriken like a knife. He does the whole same grip as a knife, and it really, really works well for him. And I've done that too, but I use more of a traditional Shuriken grip myself. I think mine is modified. I've never learned from a teacher or anything, but that's just what works for me. Holding it in the bottom of my palm like that. And I prefer squared stock because that edge just fits right in between my two fingertips right there. So
Yeah, so when you have, just like a little bit of like technique stuff on Shuriken, right?
Sure.
So with the square stuff, as Danger said, you can base, like, how you're going to hold this is going to be based a lot on what it is feels good and the size of your hands, right? So going through and you have your trigger finger and your driving finger, and we go through and we just kind of set it there and we create that rail. And then you should be able to really just kind of palm this so that it doesn't fall out, right? How far we get that into the root, right? Like, generally speaking, we're going to start kind of burying it in the root and getting that tight so we have that consistency. You're just going to kind of find where you like, right? Like, maybe you want to hold it a little more, right? Like, see, you know, Joel throws, he'll sometimes put it so it's about there, and he almost throws like it's like a bird beak, which I find works better for shorter items. I tend to use more of like this type of a grip, and it's just, you'll find out what you need. When you're using something that's round, we'll use this as an example. On the bigger stuff, you can do that, but instead of being up and down, you kind of go sideways a little bit. And so what that does is it allows you to kind of be across so it doesn't push through, right? And so it's just those like little nuances. So in the tsunami method, there's a variety of throws. The basic one works really well, like the volume 1 stuff works really well with the square stock, and you're kind of just in this up and down movement and you can come through, right? And it's that pop and comes through. Now, when you start going through and getting the volume 1, where we have, it's sidearm, but not really. It's that one where it's like it loads here, but I'm actually casting it straight forward. With the rounder stuff, it actually works better initially because it creates a bullet spinner, rifles as it goes, and the round seems to work better for people to learn on. I think that initially people should start with 6mm. These are really, really hard to throw. I always suggest people start with an 8 and a 10mm, right? Get a set of 3 of each. And the reason I say that is the 8mm are around 80 some grams, and 10mm around 100 grams each.
Oh, you mean the same length?
Same length, yeah. Okay. So 19, the sweet spot is 19 centimeters, right? We had talked about like there's different lengths for Shuriken, and you can get away with Shuriken stuff. Most of our audience is American, so we're looking 8.5 inches is the max that you can really kind of do Shuriken with. It's just past, right? So 8 3/4 inches, that's the max for doing like Shuriken kind of, right, that technique. The
traditional stuff.
Right, and the shortest where it's, most people are going to be able to do it is 6 inches. You start getting below that, like we have some stingers coming, which are octagonal. They're an octagonal. They're like this. They're like the torpedo, but they're 135mm, so about 5.5 inches, just shy of 5.5 inches.
Yeah.
Right. So how you throw that? It's not that you can't do it. It just becomes a lot more difficult to do. So if you're realistically, you're looking at about 7.5 inches, so like 17.5 centimeters, up to about 21.5 centimeters or 8.5 inches. If you stay within that zone, you can kind of throw these all the same. The sweet spot for that is about 19 centimeters. So if you're on our site looking at what we do for Shuriken, we have a lot of stuff in that 19 centimeter range. That's the sweet spot. So I would suggest that someone starts with square stock, 8mm, 10mm. You can go lighter, and you should later, but as far as like what's going to get you consistent and able to stick, it's that 8mm and 10mm that gives you that good feeling where it'll carry the weight, it's stable in flight, and then you start making it lighter, right? Going on 6mm where it's more difficult, but you can do it, and you need to get that technique, right? You need that pop, right? And then after kind of you're okay with the square stock at 8 and 10mm, I recommend people start looking at that round. The round are more difficult because they're not only lighter, but a little bit more difficult to hold.
Well, unless you talk about this bad boy.
Yeah. So I was chatting with a fella today. We have the tungsten spikes.
This is the regular MSR carbon steel. This is the tungsten spike, exact same length and thickness, but the tungsten one weighs at least twice as much.
Yeah, so tungsten is 2.5 times heavier than lead, 1.7 times heavier than lead. So yeah, 1.7 times heavier than lead, 2.5 times heavier than steel.
Right.
The issue with it is they're really expensive for like we basically sell them at cost, right? Because I wanted to have them.
It's cool, but
it's expensive for a few reasons. One of which is you can't just build that in your garage. You need specialized belts to do it. Anyone's done any type of TIG welding, right? Like work with those electrodes, it's a pain in the ass. And then the material itself is quite expensive, right? I have to go through and source it. Then on top of it, there's no way to heat treat it. So those are especially brittle. 100% your tungsten spikes are going to break.
Right. There's no way to temper them down, huh? It is what it is.
One of the properties of tungsten is it's very, very good at resisting heat. Like very high temperatures, right?
Yeah.
So like some guys, if they're doing like NOS kits or like really specialized engines, they'll use like a tungsten sleeve inside the cylinder. They'll bore it out and then do that.
Oh, really?
Right, just because it resists the heat. But you wind up getting into a situation where those are going to break, no matter what it's going to break. I can't
just eventually.
Yeah, and so unless you're good at throwing shuriken, like if that hits flat, you maybe have 5 times of it hitting flat.
Yeah.
Into a wood target before it'll just snap in half.
I'm surprised that I even still have this. Ace gave this to me, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, sometime last winter or whatever. And I almost immediately broke the tip off, and I really crudely reshaped the tip, which it doesn't need to be that pointy because there's just so much, weight behind it. But the only reason I haven't snapped this in half, I'm assuming, is because I have foam and then 2 layers of carpet down in my range. In the throw gel, so
cottonwood's pretty forgiving as well.
That too, yes. Slapping it against a hardwood target, even a new cottonwood target, you just go slapping that against the target.
But they're no joke. They're a shinobi or a samurai's wet dream.
It's incredible. Yeah.
When you're dialed in with it with a flick of your wrist, I could put that through 3/8 plywood at 7 meters.
The penetration's pretty nuts. I have trouble throwing this as well as I can with other stuff because just the round, I haven't figured that out just yet. It always, even the grip you were talking about, for some reason my fingers want to come through the middle or off to the side, so I need to work on throwing rounder stuff. Even this is a little difficult for me.
Yeah. And then you had asked, what would be really good is to get them in square stock. So we had gone through and did some in 7mm in square stock, and what's interesting is they broke faster.
I did not expect that.
And
when you told me that, that's pretty wild.
The reason is because with tungsten, you have a material that's very brittle. And then on top of it, the cross section is the same and you add more weight. Right? So an I-beam, as an example, works because it goes through and gives you the same cross section with less material, right? So we wind up going through and getting into a situation where now we have the same cross section on a brittle material, but more weight because of the edges. And if it hits flat, which it's inclined to, it's just a lot more than the material can take. Mm-hmm. Right now, up until it breaks, it's wild. But you have that 7mm by 175 millimeters, so yeah, just over a 1/4 inch by, what is that, 7 inches, something like that?
Oh, I can tell you thicknesses, but I can't tell you lengths.
Yeah, so it's about, it's just over 7 inches by just over a 1/4 inch, and that thing weighs 150 grams.
Damn.
Right? So, but the trade-off of that is there's nothing we can do to stop them from breaking. It was one of those things where I want to be the only one that had them, made them for me, and we'll probably just run them out and then not do more because people
it's cool to have one.
They get mad, right? Because
disclaimers.
Yeah, but if somebody goes through and breaks on their first day, I gotta give them good service and deal with it, right? So
now maybe you should give a little bit of background on how you even got into shuriken throwing, because you just got into knife throwing not too long ago, but you've been throwing shuriken for quite a while, right? Yeah.
So the first art that I ever got a black belt in was Bujinkan Ninjutsu. I actually taught, I taught at my own club in Regina, Saskatchewan, the city that runs fun. had a chance to actually wound up teaching at a dojo in Australia
Nice.
for Shihan there. A guy who I had trained moved to Australia and became a citizen, and I was there. I wound up teaching. Our kind of blend of CQC, which I had to go through and take my skill set and use it, and the way I was taught didn't work. So we basically just focused on the Kopajitsu, the enclosed side of it. So that's kind of where that exposure came from. It's like, okay, well, after I had a chance to go through and learn from Coach Misha and kind of the wave styles, is like, well, the way I was taught to throw Shuriken was hot garbage. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work as well as it could.
Have you pretty much abandoned everything that the Bujinkan has taught you about Shuriken throwing at this point, or you just?
There's like some stuff, like the grips are good, right?
Yeah.
But going through and sharing a lot of notes with like Mateus Bend, and Mateus is, as far as like knowing about one specific school, there's people who know more than he does. As far as somebody that can go through and tell you a cross section of all the schools and a cross section technique, Nagishi does it like this. Right, Meifu Shikake Ryu does it like this. Katori Shinto does it like this. He's the guy that has kind of that most complete overview, and then kind of taken what it is I picked up from him and combining with kind of my body mechanics. And I'm like really, like I have freakishly long arms. I can touch the back of your head, right?
Yeah, we're the same height, I think, and you do have longer arms than I do.
Yeah, like so. For me, I find that the wave styles work really well. So the way I throw Shuriken, I just call it the tsunami method. And like, there's a few reasons for that, right? One of which is I just wanted to get people throwing Shuriken in a way that was efficient, made sense. And I didn't really want to listen to someone telling me whether they thought what I was doing was wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, I mean, you're not, right? Like, it's not traditional. Yeah, I don't care. Right? Sure it's not, but I'm also throwing way fucking harder than you. And I mean, one of the big complaints that I've heard from you and others is like, nobody cares when your thing just kind of like lobs in, right?
Yeah.
People want to see that just, right, in that line, and you can do that. And that's kind of what the tsunami method does.
Yeah, because it is supposed to be a martial art, and when you're lobbing them in there like that, that's not an advantage. I hate to talk shit, but no one that I've seen throw traditionally in Japan has impressed me that much. Now, there's been a few people that I have seen here and there that throw well, but I don't think that they were classically trained.
There's a Japanese fellow, Yoshitaka.
I follow him on Instagram,
good,
right? Yeah.
He's on Facebook as well.
He throws knives a lot too.
He's a lot more into throwing knives now. I think he was an MSR guy, but he goes through and throws really hard. But one of the big things that kind of you and I have talked about in the background is it's really hard to tell how good someone is online, right?
Yeah.
And there's a few reasons for that, right? Like, and it's not that anyone necessarily does it intentionally, but there are certain camera angles where does it ever make it look like you're far away, right?
Fisheye lens, certain angles that you can't see the knife rotate. Sometimes, half spin is no spin looks like half spin, or vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the old videos of Fed that were floating around filmed on a potato in the early aughts, right? And so it's like, oh, I mean, and I showed you this week. I said, okay, watch what I'm doing. And I was like, okay, here's what he's doing in those old videos, right? And you're like, I was like, okay, if that's filmed in shitty resolution, is that half spin or no spin?
Yeah, you can't tell.
So,
you cannot tell.
Right? And so you wind up kind of getting it. And it's not that anyone's using fisheye lens to try to like pull one over on people. A lot of people are using GoPros. And I mean, there's a bunch of reasons for that, right? The software's good, blah, 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 but it just goes through and makes it. So how do you know if someone's using a GoPro? When you go through and you watch that throw, watch the speed of the throw, and like you'll watch somebody where it's like they throw and it like seems like it starts out slow and then speeds up
as it gets closer to the camera. Yeah.
Right? And that doesn't mean that person's not throwing well, it's just your perception of that is off, right? And then like videos are heavily edited, right? Like nobody shows their misses. I mean, nobody wants to watch me miss either, right? So it's really difficult to know. It's like, okay, well, is that guy just able to stick one or two, or can he do, Out of 100 throws, is he sticking better than 90?
I agree. No one wants to see everybody miss all the time.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, I'll leave some misses in there. Then I'll get some comments saying, "Hey, thank you. Thank you for including that." You know, because I don't know what everybody's perception of is. Everybody misses. I don't care how good you are. Everybody misses every time they throw. So
the caveat to that, I would say, is if you're not missing once in a while, like at least once in a while, you're not challenging yourself.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Right, you're not working hard enough.
You're working. You're throwing 3 feet away from the target if you're not missing.
Yeah. So going through and looking at these different ways and like shuriken are thrown and stuff like that. I'm like, I just want to get people throwing. And the way that kind of method works is I always use the analogy of, because the wave styles have this, for a bunch of reasons, they have this kind of arrogance around them, in which people kind of, there's some people that became involved that kind of touted themselves as, you know, just superior to everyone. You don't understand the science, and you listen to like the people describe Fed, and you look at these poorly translated videos and like, oh yeah, you know, you're going through compounding angular velocities using an impulse wave and blah blah blah, and you know you're bouncing off a dogial tendon reflex, you're not pushing, it's a passive loading of block, right? And I have an engineering background, and I own my own gym, right? I've trained people in like martial arts and fitness stuff for a long time, so I understand what all of that means. It's like, yeah, you can explain it like that. Right, you absolutely can. Or I can tell you, okay, it's kind of like you have a piece of peanut butter on the end of your finger and you're just trying to like shake it off. You're just trying to shake it off. Or it's like, okay, you have this cup of damp dirt, and it's like you just want to like shake it out. You're just trying to shake out that dirt, and you're like, oh, okay, well that's an analogy everyone can relate to. So I'm going through and I just want people to throw, and shuriken as an example had this kind of mystique around it. Well, let's go through and like just get more people pumped about it, so we can spread that passion.
Yeah. Has that sold well?
Shuriken?
No, the tsunami method used to have like, or did you sell that, or was that just available for free?
We have like, there's 3 volumes of it, and it's like a download thing. And I mean, if someone's like, hey, I want to get into shuriken or whatever, like the reality of it is like we have that stuff there because I want to have it so someone can do it. But if someone's like, yeah, you know, I want to get a shuriken, like what should I get, and blah blah blah, and I'm interested in like this video. It's like, well, why don't, right? Like, okay, get a set of 8mm, get a set of 10mm, and I'll just give you volume.
Nice.
Right? Like I would rather just give it to you and get you the shuriken that you want.
Yeah. And
so we try to do stuff like that. Or like if someone's like, yeah, you know, I really want to learn that gunslinger throw and blah blah blah. I said, okay, well, get a set of 3, and I'll like, here's like I can recommend some to you. I'll just give you the video. Let's toss in for free.
Nice.
Because I'd rather do that and have somebody get good information. Because in some ways there's this, like you're a self-taught thrower. Not lots of people are good at doing that.
I didn't have much else to do.
That's fair. Right? That's fair. But like it's one of those things where unless you can get access to somebody, it's really difficult to know what to do. Yeah. And throwing is like knives and shuriken and stuff like that. It kind of seems to be one of these things where people want this, you know, pulled myself up by the bootstraps and figured it out. It's like, what I will tell you is the best people out there at throwing, right, have had coaching. The people that go from not having thrown anything to in a year or so.
Oh, dude, yeah, like, 100%. Yeah,
Lobo went from not really having thrown to winning a world championship in no spin in a year and a half.
Yeah.
From not really having thrown to catching cans and tossing up, like taking his wedding ring up and tossing up in the air and catching it.
Yeah.
Year and a half, right? So the only way he did that is he was basically a disciple of Uncle Stan's, right? You go through and you look at the 2 top scamp guys that I know of, one of which I've thrown with in person is Pete. I like knives, right? And Ionis the Greek. A lot of people don't know Ionis. He's kind of faded in the background. He's great, right? Like I've seen him do tons of different throws out to 15 meters. 15 meters is a long fucking way, dude.
Yeah, we were throwing 10 meters last night, and that's 3/4 of my garage.
Yeah, and like So Ionis is, and both those guys are super nice guys and really, really talented. But if you were to ask them if they ever would have thought that that was possible, no. Xavier Duval at New Caledonia, he was trying to decide, you know, should he do it and should he kind of learn and get coached and blah blah. I said, man, you can do whatever you want. You will learn more about throwing and be a better thrower than you ever would have imagined. And I saw him doing a reverse grip the other day at 15 meters.
Damn.
Right? And so it's like, and that's after a year. So
is he the one that throws on a small target in a tropical?
New Caledonia is tropical. It's like over by Australia.
Okay, I think yeah.
Right, and hell of a dude, right? Really nice dude. And so it's one of those things where you can kind of go through and like stagnate, try to figure it out on your own, or you can go through like I wanted to learn how to make him fly like they did in the movie, and so I found a guy that could teach me to do that, and I worked with him online, right? People can go to throws, and there's tons of people there that want to share that information.
Dude, that's probably I'm all self-taught, but also I've gotten many tips from other people, and just going and throwing with other people, that is a huge thing. So if you're watching this, and I know you guys heard me say this many times, if you haven't been to a throw, you got to go to a throw. You'll learn more in 1 or 2 days, you know, than you will months training by yourself, because everybody throws differently. It's so crazy that even some people that are throwing the same technique or whatever, they throw completely differently. It's really cool to see, and that's one of the things I like about knife throwing, because it's such an individual thing.
Well, and I mean, like Dangerfest, right? You might, right, like even just in wave styles, you might see a guy throwing some type of scan exponent. Right, like Rob Wells.
Robert Wells is excellent.
Right,
him and his dad are excellent at it now. I mean,
so there you'll see some BMO guys, and you'll see Lobo. 3 distinctly different wave styles. Was there any Niles guys there? The Amadu?
No.
Have they kind of faded out of?
I don't know what happened with Amadu, but I see not him nor any of his students online anymore. It's been at least 2 years.
Okay. So, but you'll see a cross section of like different wave styles, right? And then with that said, you'll wind up seeing, you know, guys like Lewis has a sidearm throw that he does that's his own
wild. Thing. Yeah.
It's wild. It's super
really cool to see him when he does that. And it's a wave style. He studies all that stuff. Not from a teacher or anything. He's just a student like I am.
How long has he been throwing? Like it's been a hot minute for
sure. Yeah, he
right?
started throwing. His story is pretty good. He's been throwing stuff since he was a little kid.
Yeah, so like you'll go through and you'll see so many different ways of just doing like a wave technique or American style or Western push or whatever you want to call it, right? And those are really the big ones, but some guys are all about breaking the wrist, right? Like they want to go through and like pop when they do it. How are you doing instinctive half spin, right? Like, are you going through and throwing instinctive half spin by, as you kind of see it, you're adjusting your grip to choke up as you're kind of coming up to do it? Or are you going through and adjusting your wrist action? How are you doing that, right? You know, there's guys out there that will call something one thing, and we don't really know it that way. Like, there's a fella out there that just popped up, and he calls, like, he's doing no spin, but he's coming in, he's like if this is the point, and he's back here, and he's like launching it like this, and it really half spins, where a lot of times we're thinking about that as that quarter turn. And he's calling it half spin, where he's really doing like a full rotation, and so it's like...
His no spin is half spin, and his half spin is full spin. He doesn't call it that.
Sure.
That's just the way it is. I didn't make up these rules.
But he's got kind of a different technique.
He's got his own technique, and it's good, and it's fine. He just exists outside of the history of throwing.
And that's kind of one of the things that I find neat is there's people care about what the result is, right? So
correct. That's all I care about.
You go through and you look at like Loic and you throw completely different, but you both throw hard and you both throw well, right? You go through and you look at the Colin Lauk.
Colin, yeah.
L-O-U-K.
Yeah.
So he's been
very extreme. Like,
if someone were to say,
hats off to that guy.
If someone were to say, who do I think the most underrated thrower out there is, I would have to say that guy. I would say that Colin gets kind of the least amount of recognition for what he does. I would say Colin kind of gets the least amount of recognition, and he's not out there doing someone else's thing. Like he's got, I call it paper airplane no spin, right? Where he's like,
I believe he calls it 0 point or 0 turn.
I call it paper airplane.
He's got his, yeah. Whatever.
And so like you go through and look at that, even he who shall not be named, right? He's got that yo-yo stuff. He's going through and throwing it his own way. I call it yo-yo stuff. I don't care what you want to call it. It's yo-yo stuff. Okay?
I'm not gonna say what I want to say.
So you go through and you start looking at. There's so many different ways to do it.
Yeah.
But the thing that's neat about throwing someone in person, like, I mean, there's a bunch of reasons I come and throw with you, but like, how good am I really? Well, I can make myself look like a fucking god with video editing and camera angles, but you know, can I show up and drop a few in at 10 meters?
Amen.
In that gunslinger half.
You were here 2 years ago at my old place,
Yes,
right?
sir,
Was it
yeah.
2 years? About, yeah. This month. And what a difference 2 years makes. I showed him last time he was here, underhand half spin. And since then, he's kind of ran with it. And he was following me he was matching my throws from 3 meters all the way back to 10 meters. And we got a bunch of good footage this weekend. And I'm excited to edit that out and get it out there to you guys. We got shuriken throwing, knife throwing. I even got you throwing some tomahawks and stuff. I don't think we got any of that video, but we got you doing some rotational stuff. Like
for me, the place where I'm absolutely the weakest, aside from throwing the Tsubagata, which I have a set of these from Lewis. You know what? If you're good at throwing the Tsubagata, you're just better than me.
These are difficult.
The Mitsubagata for me are the most difficult thing for me to throw. But like aside from that, I haven't done a lot of hawk that isn't no spin, and I mean that doesn't count really. And I haven't really thrown much rotational. I mean, I can go through because I can throw anything and like, okay, well if I stand here and how do I adjust this action? But as far as like where I'm supposed to stand, 3 spin, 3.5, like I don't know, right? It's just something where I just haven't done enough of it.
Well, that's also not your focus. Either.
It isn't.
You just want to focus on instinctive stuff, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But it's all knife throwing to me, and I enjoy it all. So. Yeah. What is your best selling shuriken? What is your best selling knife on the website? Do you know that offhand? I'd be interested to know.
Goes in seasons.
Yeah.
If you were to ask me this time last year, nomads we couldn't keep in stock.
Yeah.
Nomads are, if someone's just starting out, nomads are fantastic, right?
Yeah.
Half spin, no spin, they work in every style. The exponent of that, like the Fang. No spin or nomads are really neat because they are a back heavy knife, but they have a straight handle. So it makes them really easy to throw. There was the Kshevnik.
The what?
The Kshevnik that Kisler put out. That was the original Nomad.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And so they had issues with their points breaking. We went through and adjusted the points slightly and kind of adjust the metallurgy. And
did that one have any hollow grinds on it? That one did not, right?
That one didn't.
Okay.
Right? So, like, as far as what Kisler was doing. But people, like, it was just a matter of time before they were breaking. And, I mean, with that said, it was, I think they were like a $30 or $40 knife or something like that, right? But a very aggressive point, but they were breaking. So, but when you look at the Nomads, we're able to revisit those on request from Lobo, and we do a kickback to Uncle Stan for him with it as his design. Those in half spin, really good throw. Any type of half spin, forehand, scamp sidearm or wave sidearm, gunslinger half, no spin obviously, right? Like my gunslinger no spin with them is, I think I pushed up to 7 meters.
Oh yeah.
Right? And I mean a few different thicknesses and stuff like that. So that last year was probably the top. And then I mean we see seasons, right? So and there's at this point we're coming up to 150 different designs. Yeah. We have a couple getting ready to launch. We have full size versions of the Oni and the Tengu in 5 and 6 millimeter. And those things just slap, man. They just slap. Pete from I Like Knives, we worked on the Better Bowie with him. As far as for half spin, it's not my favorite for half spin. For no spin, fuck me farley.
I need to make another video with that knife. It's very, very good. It's a Bowie knife, which I'm a big fan of. Has leather scales. I'm a big fan of. Has the hollow grind on the spine. Big fan.
Yeah.
And it's sharp. So it checks all the boxes for me. If you guys haven't seen that yet, check it out. It's a good no spin thrower for sure.
So with the Even Better Bowie, which is the biggest difference between the Even Better Bowie and the Better Bowie is the leather scale sharp edge.
Okay, sorry.
And so what we had
That's
done.
what I meant. The Even.
Yeah. What we had done with that was we wanted something to kind of compete with that saber-tooth baby tooth type of class, without just like sniffing the crotch and riding in the wake of the saber-tooth and baby.
Very, very different knife, but
like
similar category, I guess.
Similar category, but completely different look.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I've seen a few versions of the saber-tooth baby tooth out there, and it's like, yeah, but that's just someone else's knife, right?
Right.
Where for me, I wanted, first of all, right, you don't get more American than a Bowie knife. Anyone that's a blue collar fella in North America, right, part of that frontier culture, it's just in our blood, the Bowie knife, right?
Yep.
So less so the Arkansas toothpick, right? So that Bowie knife, it's such an iconic piece of Americana. That Harley Davidson's, bacon, beer, right? It's just hoorah. So we have that, and then to go through and add the leather scales, and I mean, leather just feels great. I think it feels better than a stabilized wood or like a micarta. I like the way that feels.
It's much more durable for throwing,
sure,
for sure.
Sure. And then to go through and with the leather and the live edge, I think we tick the boxes for Mountain Man on that.
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't thrown it much.
Little short in my opinion for rotational, but it could be done.
Sure.
For sure.
Okay. And so having that live edge, we toss the acid wash on there. We got a 440C, so you kind of get that patina that comes out, and it's got that cool style to it.
Yep. It does.
So like that one has been really popular, and so it really just kind of depends. Like there's seasons for everything, right?
So it's basically quarterly.
It just depends. It depends on what people are into. Now with Shuriken, the Shuriken that I suggest everyone starts with, not everyone listens to me, but that everyone starts with are you want something with a square stock, an 8 to 10 millimeter. So a 10 millimeter Chishin Ryu, or the 8 or 10 millimeter cubic spikes.
What about the Bo-Dashi?
The Bo-Dashi hits really hard. And
it's kind of a different animal though, huh? It's not really traditional. Really.
Well, so what's interesting about Bo-Dashi is, so Rich Igatengu, we sent one to him, and we'd sent them out to a few people, even Joel there in Finland, Jalapeno or whatever, right? And that was a first for a bunch of people, right? So we saw no one was doing big, thick stuff, right? So that thing's 12.5 millimeter, half inch, square stock. And then we put the fuller on the spine, which, I mean, nobody was really doing that until we kind of started messing with stuff. But to, be fair to where it came from, that piggybacks off what you and Jason were doing. Yep. Right, and so, and that thing weighs, 200 and some grams. And so we did
it's a beast.
We did that Bo-Dashi as really like a hybrid piece. It was a gateway shuriken. So it's built so people that are into throwing shuriken might kind of dip the toe in the water of knife throwing, and the people that are knife throwers kind of dip the toe in the water of shuriken, because you can throw that thing with either of those techniques. Right? If someone wants to get serious about shuriken, I wouldn't start with it because it's a bit too heavy, and right, especially with the tsunami method, I use that pop, right, and it's that. And you won't get that technique because you're going to labor under it.
It's heavy, yeah.
But I mean, if you're a guy like Big Mitch, he's just there for the violence, right? So, like he's got, I know he's got 12mm cubic spikes. I know he's got the Bo-Dashi, but if you can, the Bo-Dashi is probably the easiest shuriken out there to stick. If I were to get backed into a corner and someone said you're gonna get scored in no spin competition, I'd probably just use a set of Bo-Dashis.
Yeah.
Honestly. Because
that'd be a good choice, really.
They hit hard enough. The triangular point is very, very good at catching wood and also staying in, right?
Yeah.
Because conical points will go in, but they don't bite the same way.
Nope. That's why field tips on arrows are very easy to pull out of targets.
That makes sense. Yeah. And so going through and kind of looking at that Bo-Dashi is really good. But again, like shuriken is such a different style, right? Like you have like the Hornets and stuff like that. And so it just winds up varying so much. What I recommend people start with, well, I mean, everyone wants fancy shit, right? So everyone's looking for, they think that the fancier item is going to give them a head start. And with shuriken, at least, you want the simplest thing that you can get away with, right?
Oh, yeah.
80 to 100 or so grams, square stocks, easy to grab. And here's the thing, those are the cheapest ones that we have, and we really have the least margin on them out of any of them.
Really?
But, well, yeah, I mean, because you can't really, there's not enough work into them, right?
I gotcha.
So there's not really enough work into them, so it's not like there's really any margin on them. It's just that's what's going to get you learning the best.
Yeah.
Where you start getting into like odd shapes, like when you're learning to throw that hornet, you get good at throwing that hornet. But when you go through and try to do something else, even the difference between this Kotori Shinto Ryu that's got the boat tail on the back, and this Chishin Ryu, which has the same front but it's straight in the back. This, as it travels through the air, it sags a little bit, right? And it behaves differently, right? And so the big difference with these is as you come down and start to throw, this will cause that action, right? So you're coming through and it travels. When you go through and you look at these Kotori Shinto Ryu or the Uchibari, that's tapered on the back, and because it allows you to have more of a, like as you're coming forward, it allows you more of a downward motion because it tapers off and you're gonna backspin it less, right? So to throw these is a lot more difficult than you would think, but if you understand how to throw just the basic ones, you can kind of adapt. Okay, I need to do a bit more of this or a bit less of this. It's kind of learning those lessons. We have a bunch of axes. Oki helped us. Thanks a lot to Oki, and kind of tuned those up. No one seems really interested in them. They're good designs, right? Like Oki, I don't know anyone that's probably more passionate about axes than Oki.
I would agree.
Right? So we got that Thundercat. Works really, really well, right? Like, really well. And I mean, people really just don't have an interest in it.
I just think that, especially in the competitive side of things, the market's kind of cornered with just regular, good old-fashioned tomahawks. Hardly anyone throws full metal tomahawks, axes, hatchets, whatever you want to call them. In Ichtov, I believe that's a rule.
Okay.
I believe that rule is outdated. Some people would say that they would spin quicker. I don't see there's a difference as long as you're behind the minimum distance. I don't see what... But then again, there's, the old 12-inch minimum knives that was put in place for safety back in the day, so they didn't have cheap Amazon aluminum or stainless steel stuff ricocheting and hurting someone else on the range. So that's there's a couple outdated rules that I wish they would update. If I show up to an Ichtov event and I want to throw this 8.5-inch knife no spin, I think, and I can do it safely, I think I should be able to do it. I think they've changed the minimum length to 9 inches. I don't really keep up on Ichtov's rules changes like that.
So they're saying 9 inches is a little on the small side. Tough crowd.
I think so.
Tough crowd. I mean,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, anyway.
One of the things that I think that is really kind of opened up throwing, because we've seen a huge increase in not only like the number of people involved, but the level. And I really think that what you've done over the last, coming up to 10 years with Dangerfest is, like, if someone would have told me that if I had to show up to a throw, I had to wear like a coon hat and like buckskin pajamas and like muckalucks and shit like that, I would have told you all pound sand. And the fact that you don't do that at your throw, I think makes it a lot more inviting, right? If someone shows up like, you know what, I want to throw these, these 8.5 inches of danger that I just got, right? Or right, I want to do the no spin. I'm gonna throw a shuriken like Rich did.
Yeah.
Right. It's like cool.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't care.
Someone wants to throw in like a little kind of a different style. Say they want to say they want to throw gunslinger no spin. I want to throw like a sidearm type thing. It's like, okay, well, let's figure out a way to do that's it. Okay, well, you're going to have to stand on this part of the range, or we'll just make sure you're in the last heat so there's, open spaces or whatever.
Yeah, if we think that you're unsafe, which I haven't seen anybody that shows up to a competition that throws unsafe.
Yeah.
So
I think that we've seen a big growth in that because the work that you've done, and really just being approachable. Right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get more people involved. And the more rules we have, the less people want to show up and do that stuff. And to be fair, the whole dressing up in, correct clothing, that's usually just done at the Mountain Man stuff. The Mountain Man throws are totally separate, than ICTOF or AKTA or whatever other organizations out there. I don't even think they're under any banner. I think it's just, the black powder shooters, the NMLRA or something like that. Don't quote me on that. They still allow it or make everybody dress up in pre-Civil War garb, but
the reenacting the Civil War over and over isn't going to change the outcome, right?
Oh, damn it!
Okay, just wanted to bring that up,
but yeah, it's been really cool to see the interest in Shuriken come back, because when I first got into throwing, there were several people that were into Shuriken because of Huzan Suzuki from Japan, and it seemed like only the hardcore people were really into the Shuriken stuff because it is more difficult. And now we're seeing
one of the names that comes to mind was definitely Travis Deshawn. I've heard he was a hell of a Shuriken guy. I haven't had a chance to see him throw, but I've heard Oki talk highly about how he was with them.
Yep. The number one guy we got to mention is Ryan Muaw. He was a legend, and his name on YouTube at the time was Knife Shuriken, and he threw more Shuriken than anything. And actually, when he still shows up to Broken Feather, he throws his old school Shuriken with the wrapped handle. He still uses the wrapped handle just like Huzan did, and he's a beast with them. So.
And then there's old Tater there. Didn't Tater get
Taylor?
Yeah.
Taylor Hole, yep, he threw the big Shuriken as well, and as far as I know, he still has the world record for the highest score in competition, and I believe the only one to do above 200 was Shuriken. No, I could be wrong. Travis Deshawn, I can't remember what you were throwing in competition that year. I can't remember if it was a knife that year or if it was Shuriken. I think Travis has always competed with a knife. But yes, he was very good with Shuriken as well.
I've heard Oki speak quite highly of Travis's throwing, and I believe Shuriken was part of that.
Yeah, he's taken a little bit of a hiatus, but he'll be back.
I mean, everything's got a season, right?
Yeah.
And then, he's kind of, I think, Pat Brewster. Pat Brewster was doing a lot of stuff with Shuriken.
Of course.
Right? He's kind of, I don't want to say faded into obscurity, but I think he's
kind of stepped back.
Singing reggae music or something like that.
Yeah, he's pursuing his music career,
or
I suppose. Like but yeah, he was, we can't go, we can't talk about the history of no spin, Shuriken, knife throwing without mentioning Flying Steel and Patrick Brewster. He was a huge part of it, and I believe he partnered up with Huzan in the beginning. And a lot of those old Shuriken designs were straight from Who's On.
Well, you go through and you look at the Shinobi design that he did, right? Has a strong Shuriken influence, right? Where it's kind of got the boat tail shape in the back, tapered in the back.
Yeah.
I think it's a talisman or the amulet, or have like a bit of a taper going at the back, right? So like going through
those knife designs were, yeah, okay, I see what you mean.
right. So
Yes.
once you kind of go through and you start digging into Shuriken, and I mean, what's classic Shuriken or Fei Biao is, it's so vast, and Fei Biao, for those who don't know, is up in China, and so that's just the Chinese word. You know, whether you're looking at Mandarin, which dialect you want to say, but the Japanese are a lot like the Germans and the Swiss, in which everything's codified and there are standards, right, that must be followed. Where the Chinese, right, like you go through and you look at how many different styles of Kung Fu, right, and the way it was in the North versus the South, the focus, right, and right, like things that are Shaolin versus Wudan and blah blah blah, right, the things that developed outside of that. Well, Shuriken was much more of an individual thing, right? When you start getting into like Chinese weaponry in general, historically, wild ideas. Like there was literally things that you would throw at somebody from when you were on a horseback, and it would cut the person's head off and put it in a sack for you.
I saw the episode on, what was it, the History Channel at the time? What was that show?
So Les Kahn, him and his wife Noelle are probably the most complete knowledge of the Chinese origins of ninjutsu. They have scrolls where they found the document, like the mentioning, and not just a casually mentioning, but in specific details for its capabilities, what Chinese stealth operatives, like the equivalent of ninja, were doing 2,500 years ago.
Hell yeah.
The oldest schools in Japan for ninjutsu that they can find are about,
hundreds, right?
900,000 years maybe.
Okay.
Right? So it's like, but we're talking 2,500 years, right? And so I'd asked him about that thing, right? Like, is that real? And he said, well, there's not lots of info on it, but it was definitely something that existed. It was definitely something that they, like, as far as being able to capture a person's head like that. And he said there's not, like, because there's a bit of secrecy as how it was made and stuff like that, it's not well documented as far as how it was made, but it definitely existed.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
It's wild, right? So you see kind of that design, and then we've been working on some stuff with Mateus, in which I like to mix my square-headed science in with Shuriken, just being an engineer and designing stuff. So we just did flat versions of the dragonfly and flat versions of the hornet, the Meganura.
Yeah, can you explain what you mean by flat?
So instead of having, this is three-dimensional, right? So it's that, and this is on a big piece of square stock. So there was a version where we just made this flat, still has the fuller and everything. We just thinned it out this way. And then there was a version where we took and basically smushed it down.
Like ripped it in half, kind of.
So there's one where we ripped it in half, and there's one where we smushed it down. So we took the amount of material that was up here in the head, and we just compensated to like bring it down further.
Okay.
So the balance and everything is exactly the same.
Oh, that's cool.
And they throw unbelievably well.
And those are recent, right? You just got those, right?
Those would be within like the last month.
Okay.
Right? And then so we have, like I said, we have some other stuff that just landed, some stuff that, like I have stuff because I came here, right, that arrived Thursday night that I haven't had a chance to kind of do everything for. I'm still editing the pictures for them.
How many different things did you just get?
I just put 5 on the site, and I got probably another 5.
Damn.
Like there will be, in the next week or so, there will be 144 items in the throwing category.
Damn, dude.
Right. We just put more of the J7s up.
Right? Oh, cool.
Yeah, your favorite.
Hell yeah, dude.
For those of you that don't know, the J7 was the J7 OMA, or the Johnny 7 One-Man Army, was a project that we did during COVID where we made these chassis so people could go through and kind of finish a knife or kind of wrap it and kind of
skeletonized handle.
Yeah, which I like because I like things that are front heavy. I like things that are front heavy because I'm a wave thrower and a shuriken thrower. Things that are front heavy only work for no spin, and they only work really well for like a wave type of throw. If you're a push thrower, they don't work as well, and if you're trying to do half spin, it doesn't.
Oh man, dude.
And so
I cannot half spin those damn things, dude. It's tough.
So when you go through and you look at here's this version of the.
I don't even know what he called that, dude.
So it's like a bow dash, right? So
right.
Because of how this is, you have a weight reduction. You have half the weight here going to this portion. So then if you take half here, and then it's going to be right half that portion. It's going to be shifted back slightly. So your balance point is just behind center. Mm-hmm. So why that matters for half spin and when this is rotating is because I want the point that's going to cleave in, I want it to be rotating further out than the rear because it gives it a better chance of grabbing, right? So if I'm coming in, right, this might miss and I might catch, right? So I have a better chance of kind of getting it in. When you go through and you look at, this is the Shinobi Slim. Shinobi Slim is based off a design by Hanzo Suzuki. We just took it and thickened it up. Yep. Front heavy, and you can find examples of this in the Ninja Scrolls and stuff like that. So this is a front heavy design. Once this gets going in that straight fashion, it just keeps going. But if I go through and I look at where the balance point of this is, it is behind center. So when this rotates, when this is clearing, when this is clearing, the handle is more likely to grab than the point. Can I throw it in a half spin? Can I rotate it? Of course I can. But it
takes more effort.
It's not as high of a percentage, right? And so I really like the front heavy stuff because predominantly what I do is no spin. And if I were to be 100% honest, when I'm throwing knives, it's either my preferred throws are a gunslinger no spin or a gunslinger half spin. That's how I like to throw. It is the most efficient for me. I like a sidearm half spin. I can throw them other ways in no spin, but that's just if I want to throw and I'm enjoying myself. I mean, I would say 80% of throwing that I did this weekend was in one of those two throws.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Right? And so going through and kind of looking at that, the J7 works really well for that type of wave throw. And the J7, we have it in 6mm and 8mm. It is kind of a modern interpretation of a kunai. It has an Americanized tanto or a very geometrical tanto. Think like the Sierra KTM 16-14 ZSF.
Yeah.
The Carson flippers. Right, the Sierra KT did, right? It was the Carson flipper design, the Sierra KT M16 line, right? We had the scallop, right, where you had the American tanto, the Americanized tanto. There was a drop point and a buoy kind of version, but that Carson flipper design, that's what kept Sierra KT afloat for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Everything else was dog shit. I would say the person that probably brought the American Tonto into vogue would be Cold Steel.
Definitely,
Lynn Thompson with the Recon Tonto, with Recon Tonto.
Recon, the GI, they have so many different Tonto designs.
Right,
yeah,
and
they were definitely responsible for that.
So kind of going through and looking at that, we put that on the one side, and then we put a drop point dagger on the back. And that thing is, especially in the 8mm version, it's kind of our concept or our riff on the kunai.
Yeah.
Right, because you could lash it to a spear or whatever. Because it was front heavy, we could really throw that and it worked. And it's one of those things where people either absolutely love that knife, like I think the first I've taken it's 7 meters, right, in no spin, or they think it is the worst fucking knife they have ever seen, but only a mother could love it. It's like that and a Nomad, right? Only a mother could love it. And so there's no one in between. There's no one's like, yeah, you know, it's okay, right? People have a strong opinion either way. And I mean, it's also one of those things where, like a fat chick, no one wants to admit, like, they may love it, but they don't want to say publicly that they do. So we're like, you know, we're going to bring it back.
Hey man, what do I know? If people keep, like you said, you keep buying them, you keep selling them, people like them, then that's all that fucking matters, you know. I particularly do not like the knife. It is much better in 8mm, for sure.
It's harder for sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's much more controllable in my opinion. But you know, even though I don't like it, I will still be able to stick it at 7 meters. That video I sent to you.
Well, I mean, so anyone, I maintain that you can like something, you can not like something, but if you're a thrower, you can throw anything.
Oh,
you will figure out a way to stick it.
I can make a butter knife look great in an edited video.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I have videos out there of me doing a gunslinger half spin with a 12-inch gooseneck.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, that thing goes right in there. Yeah. Like you can bury him in like that, right? Like, so you can make anything look good, but what is it that kind of people really want? And so we kind of did that.
Well, you got the selection for sure. If you can't find something that you like on Delta2Alpha, maybe you should try to find another hobby.
Well, I mean, that's it, right? There's also someone had asked me like about Lewis Prince, and Lewis and I are, like, in my opinion, two different ends of the market, right? Lewis has tons
100%.
of rotational stuff. His production value is really
He caters right to the competitive market.
Yes.
All his stuff is for competition.
And I haven't, like as an example, 8.5 inches of danger, made by Lewis Prince. Right? He made the first
especially
one.
the second gen.
With the full
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So he goes through, his production value is really good, and he does a lot more of the rotational stuff than we do, right?
He took over all of Werner Langmuller's line.
Okay, yeah.
So that's why his the number of knives that he has available is just incredible, and they're all of them are good, every single one.
Yeah, proven designs.
Yeah.
And so someone was asking, like, oh, hey, you know, like, are you going to get more into rotational? Like we had talked about that, right? And I mean, for me, I'm not a rotational thrower, so for me to be able to really bring something new to that market, like we did the CX for Max.
That's a good knife,
right? But it's not my design. We did that for him, but it's also one of those things where Lewis does such a great job on rotational, and I just truthfully don't think that I can do anything that's going to be better without just producing something he's already doing, which that's not what I do. Right?
Actually, Ace has been asking me to come up with my own rotational design because I'm a rotational thrower. You know, I throw everything, but rotational is what I started with, and that's what I excel at. And I don't know if it's worth it for me to even come out with my own rotational design, because I've been throwing everybody else's designs, Bill Page's, you know.
Those Griffins are nice.
The Griffins, I mean, I don't think I can improve on anything or add anything that's good or better than Lewis's stuff that he's making for Werner. Werner's one of my favorite rotational throwers of all time. So it's like, I can make something very similar, but we're not going to be reinventing the wheel. You know, it'll be some kind of rendition of something, which, you know, honestly, it would probably be something similar to the Bullseye Seeker of Bill Page's, or the Griffin from Bill Page or Joe Dara. So hopefully, eventually, I will have a rotational thrower out there, and it'll probably be sold on D2A. But I don't know if I can. I don't know.
For me, I think that it's like one of the philosophies that Delta2Alpha uses, and I mean not just like we have a whole bunch of stuff that's outside of throwing. Is at a certain point, a design is the best it's going to be. If I handed you a ball bearing in a file, and I said, I want you to make the best version of this, if you did anything but hand it back to me, you fucked up. It is now worse, right? So it's like, at a certain point, we kind of need to accept that there are some designs where it's like, it doesn't get better, that we've reached the pinnacle, right?
Maybe just someone else selling it,
sure.
Rebranding.
Right.
That helps, getting someone's name on something.
Bringing back an old design, right? Like,
okay, yeah,
right, stuff like that. Like, what was wrong with this? Well, I mean, like, I didn't like the feel of that. Okay, well, we choose material.
Maybe different handle scales.
Right. Going through, like, the balance of that was really good, but I felt it was a little too heavy. Well, the good news is we have access to a better alloy now. Mm-hmm. All right, so stuff like that you can do.
Yeah, that's true.
When you start getting into like shapes and stuff like that, there's only so much that can be done.
Yeah.
Right, like you go through and you look at the bulb style handle. Right.
Yeah.
So there's only so many points that work. A Kiridashi is a great point for throwing. The Americanized Tanto, like we did the villain for Fat Tony.
Yeah.
Right, that's good.
Yeah.
Right, and there's only so many point designs that are going to work. And there's only so many handle designs that are going to work. Someone can tell that I, Ace, designed something because the handle is either straight or has a slight taper to it. Mm. Right? Like if you see something on the site that has a straight handle or a slight taper, 100% it was me that designed it.
Yeah. Where, the classic Dashi is actually wider. The classic Dashi has got a fatter bulb on the end for an open hand grip. Mm-hmm. But the more recent Dashis we're doing, the slimmer 8.5, the fast Dashi, the race knives, they're all much thinner here, so you can get a good closed hand grip, and it doesn't impede the release. So different designs are different for different things, for sure.
For me, at this point, as far as like we've talked a lot about like FastDraw being the future knife throwing, over the weekend we've had a chance to talk a lot about like some stuff that we have kind of in the works and stuff like that. So I mean, stay tuned. We can't say too much right now, but one of the things that there's a lot of people that do like, I want to be able to throw no spin FastDraw, right? So we put out Practical Guide to No Spin, and we focus on throwing from a closed hand grip. And the reason is, being a scamp thrower, the weakest part about the scamp no spin technique, or the scamp technique in general, as it was taught to me, is the grip is very, very specific, and when you have some of that kind of finicky, it's not robust, right? So for me, myself, at this point in how I throw, and I'm sure that everyone in the comments is a better thrower than me, and your wiener's bigger and all that. The way that I throw at this point is with a closed grip. If I have a knife and I cannot throw it, or a knife or a shuriken, I can't throw it from a full grip.
With your fingers wrapped around, right?
The same grip, right? Like, so if I'm going through from a fighting grip to here, this is my transition, right? For me to go from like how I'm fighting to throwing, that's how it is. If I can't throw from a full grip, that knife isn't my knife. And so everything that I've done is all kind of geared towards how is I can index it. Can I go through and throw from the drop? Now,
indexing is crucial,
because I mean, what was the difference in time between, on no spin,
hundredths of a second,
between somebody, like between the guy who got first place and the guy that got 10th?
Oh.
0.3 seconds? 0.2 seconds?
0.2-ish.
Between didn't place by several, wouldn't have got a bronze medal if the first 6 people died. Right? If something happened, lightning wiped out the first 6 people, the guy who lost by 0.2 of a second
still wouldn't place.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's how tight it is. So quite frankly, no one has the fucking time to be adjusting their grip.
No.
So you need to throw from that full grip. You need the same grip you're going to grab, right?
I agree.
And so all of my kind of playing that I've done is with a full grip now. I don't throw from an open grip. And so when we did the race knives, the Apex and 5mm especially, the Fast Dashi, we have the full-size Oni. We have a 10-inch version of the Oni and a 10-inch version of the...
I'm excited to see the 10-inch version, or to get one in my hands.
They're great. I'll send you one in each thickness, right? So we know it's 5 to 6 mil. Those, you throw them how you grab them. Right? And so when we start kind of looking at that, that's really what you have to do. Now that Fast Dashi, when we had kind of gone through and slimmed that out, I don't need to change anything with my grip when I draw it. And that's really kind of how how it is I've shifted in what I do. If I need to use some kind of finicky specialized grip, I might play with it.
Right.
Like full rotation reverse grip. I can go through, like I stuck it a few times when I was here,
Mm-hmm.
where I just like to prove that I can, but that's not what I'm going to battle with, right? Right? And so
that's more of a skill thing.
It's kind of it's showing off, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I would say the guy out there that's the best with it that I've seen is probably Nolan Beckham.
That was the first person that came into my mind, yeah.
And I mean by the best, like good enough stick can with it.
Yeah.
Right? So if I can't do something with the grip I'm going to grab it with, I don't. And so I always go for straight handles, slightly tapered handles. As soon as they break from my hand, they're gone like a safety valve. And so that's kind of where I'm at. And I mean, when you throw no spin, your no spin FastDraw, are you throwing from an open grip?
No, because you got to grab a hold of that damn thing, and it depends on what knife I'm using. But now, no, this year I switched to this. I did not use the Fast Ashy because I figured out that these are a little bit shorter. They clear the sheath quicker, and they're about the same width, same weight. So, at Dangerfest, we allow you to have one digit. You can like for FastDraw for rotational, we allow you to have your palm touching. Then you grab like this. For no spin, because it's so difficult to index properly, we allow you to have one digit touching, whether it be your thumb or your finger. So in order to pinch it like this to throw open grip, it just doesn't make as much sense. You just need to grab it and let it rip. And we're only throwing from 10 feet or 3 meters. So it really allows you to basically fuck up and still get the knife to stick. As long as,
So what's interesting is we're starting to see, like when we had started the conversation about FastDraw being future knife throwing 2 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're starting to kind of get to the point at which we're seeing tech start to get involved, right?
We should have grabbed that knife.
Right, so tech as far as what knife is the fastest, right? Because when you and I first started kind of chopping it up on knives, we're like, yeah, you know what? It's got to be 10 to 12 inches, and goddamn, it's going to be 1 ounce per inch. And I was like,
that was always just the standard.
That
was basically for rotational stuff.
That's the rule of thumb. But if you go through and you look at that, that means that somebody is throwing a knife that is a 280 to 300 grams and 10 to 10 and a half inches long.
That's ridiculous.
Right, a pound is 254. A half a pound is 254 grams. Right, so it's like when you go through and you start looking at that, it's like, how fast are you going to be with that?
Yeah.
And so right now, right, the Fast Ashy, great race knife, and it's interesting because when we did the 8.5 inches of danger, right, like we didn't even know if anyone was going to be into it. No one had done short knives. No one. And now we're kind of at a thing where starting to kind of move back closer to that Shuriken world.
Yeah.
In which
it's very interesting because I was telling you, I think yesterday,
yeah,
it's been interesting to watch. I've been in the throwing community for over 10 years now, and you started off watching Ralph Thorne videos. He was throwing 15-inch Bobby Branton knives. And then over the years, they've started to shrink, and then 10, 11 inches was the standard. And then now we're getting into the 8, and I think 7 is the shortest knife that I've seen.
Is that
out there.
Mongoose or what is that?
I'm not sure. We're at 7 to 9, somewhere in there. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's very interesting. I remember a guy named, if Patrick Brewster's watching this, he's not, but I believe there was a guy named Jeffrey Adams, an older gentleman with white hair, and he used to throw Shuriken that were that long, dude. And he could throw them, I'm talking 3 inches long, and he would just palm them, and he could just rocket them in there. I wish I could find those old videos. It was very, very impressive. And it just blew my mind. Because I think that these are very difficult to throw.
He must have been throwing those right kind of in those like...
Dude,
like those, like right on the finger.
I believe his name's Jeffrey Adams, and I don't know if he has a YouTube channel, but I remember Patrick sharing his videos on Facebook a while back, and I'll have to go back and check those out. Maybe I'll message Patrick about that. Very, very, very impressive, you know.
Yeah. So now we're kind of getting into this, the tech side of it, right? Which is really where it's neat. So it's like, well, we have two knives, right? We have the race knife, the fast dashi, in which truthfully is probably going to be more consistent for most people, right? Just based on that little bit extra length, a little more stable.
I think so.
Right? But it's the same weight as the 8.5 that we have in the quarter.
Yeah.
Right? Because the original 8.5s are 3/8, right? So it's the same weight. Yeah. But then you start going, right? You start getting into the nerdy side of it, right? You have, right? So one is 9.5 millimeter 3/8, the other is 6.5 millimeter 1/4 inch, right? So you wind up going through and looking. You have two knives the same weight, but one is 2 inches shorter than the other. So when you go through, start getting into like the physics terms or moments, right? So the longer that item is, the heavier it feels, right? The more resistance you start to be able to move it. So, right, and then you start getting into, okay, well, that 2 inches shorter, how much faster is that coming? Oh, well, it doesn't matter. Well, the difference between first and 10th place was 0.2 of a second, so I think it matters, right? So you start kind of getting into, it's like, okay, so my ability to clear that is 0.05 faster because of those 2 inches. Well, as I'm kind of coming around, I can bring that over that little tiny bit faster.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and then so because that's coming over faster, it means that it can leave my hand faster, but also travel faster. But it requires a higher level of skill to have that shorter knife be stable. And you start going through and like, okay, well, the lighter knife's going to travel faster, but I know that heavier one's going to be more consistent when it hits, and I can fuck that up a little bit and still get that fudge factor. So guys start kind of, if you start getting to hot rod guys, like guys who are like trying to look for the fast 1/4 mile, and they start building it's shaving weight. It's like, okay, you know, I'm going to go through, I'm going to use these tires. Like, do I want the Mickey Thompson Street Slicks? No. I'm going to go through, like a buddy of mine worked at a wheel shop, and he's like, it was hell. Like, I would have some guys like, okay, so I need like I got a 5-bolt pattern, but I need a 4-bolt pattern, and I'm going to go, like, I want to be like 12 inches, but I want to be like
just really
right, like super
fine details. Yeah.
Oh man, and so it's like we're starting to get into that, and that's why I would even get into the tech, right? Mm-hmm. And so I really think like Karush is starting to do some stuff with the magnets, right? And so you wind up seeing kind of different categories, because when we get the instinctive, we get the FastDraw, where a lot of that is going to draw parallels is with IPSC and IDPA. Mm-hmm. Right, so when you go through and you look at the biggest difference between IPSC and IDPA...
And that's the competitive shooting.
That's the action sports shooting, right?
Okay.
So IDPA is where you had all the race gun shit, right? So you'd see someone with an STI where, you know, you go through and just like pull it back and cock it that way. All the holographic sights, right? The EOTechs and all that. And now we have the, you know, is it Aim Point that makes the RMR? Or is it Trijicon? Anyway, right, so the aim points, right, so the holographic sights on top of the pistols, that came out of IPSC. Yeah, that came out of IPSC, which was fantasy gun shit. And then you see, oh, you know, guys are having like these enhanced back straps on the pistol. Well, now you're buying pistols that have that option, right? Like the Glock Gen 4s, and is there Gen 5 now? Right, so they started going through, it was called the Beaver Tail. So that back strap is there. Now there's the stippling that you can get. Right, and that's becoming stock in the pistols, the flared out mag wells. Mm-hmm. So a lot of that is kind of influenced, but when you look at the IPSC, it's what is it you can carry?
What's the old saying? Necessity
is the mother of
invention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the big kind of difference is what is it you're able to carry, and then so the IPSC, right? You have like the race gun guys, and you have the IPSC guys. And it's not that the IPSC guys don't game it a little bit, but it's a little more focused on the practical side of it, and that's kind of where that split to IDPA came from. And then within the IDPA class, you have, right, like the classic photographer vest kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But you also have the bug category, the backup gun category, where your barrel length was restricted. You're looking at compact or subcompact. So that's where you're looking at, guys are running it with the 5-shot hammerless chief, right? Typically in 38, right? And it's like, well, how good can someone be with that? Well, a guy I call my American dad, he's told me he can. I've seen him hit silhouettes at 100 yards with it.
Oh yeah.
Right?
That's
now,
impressive. Right?
So you start going through and looking at that. So you start getting these categories where it's, we have guys like Caruso that are really kind of starting to push that holster side of things. It's got some ideas with magnets and shit like that. And we're starting to see that race category pop up.
I love it.
But then we're also seeing, was this Keystone that did this?
Correct.
Right? So we got Oki, shout out to Oki from Keystone Sheets, who just did Kydex appendix carry inside the waistband, stuff like that. Where you're looking at like a fruit knife, taco sheet, pocket draw, where it's like, okay, you got to be able to carry it. It's got to be carried, it's got to be 100% concealed. And so you start getting these categories that shift in there. Well, it's like, okay, well, how big can it be? What's the weight it can be? So we're going to start seeing that fast.
It'll be interesting to see, especially we are going to have concealed fast draw at Danger Fest this coming year. We're going to be heavy fast draw at Danger Fest this year because it's the 10-year anniversary and it's my favorite and it's the future. So, yeah, you heard it here first. Start practicing, figuring out different carry options, different knife lengths, different sheaths, designs, and whatnot. So.
And really like in the nature of trying to see people game it and develop the tech, and we're really outsourcing how that development happens, right? And it's good. It's really a community driven thing because this is all new. So you'll see guys going through and looking at, okay, well, right, like, do I want something that is lighter or that's the same weight, stockier, or do I want something that's longer and I know it's going to be a little more consistent, right? Or going through and like. Some character like me pops up and like this is
that'll be interesting.
110 grams.
It's light,
and so it's like, well, I can rocket that in there. It's super pointy, right? And what is it I can do with that flick of the wrist? And so, sure, play with that, right?
To see someone use a shuriken would be pretty cool.
Here's from the bug category, from the fast draw category, from concealed. Shuriken, not knives, are the only thing that there's historical documentation of people carrying with the express purpose of throwing. Not also maybe was thrown. For the express purpose of being thrown.
Hidden hand.
Right? And so when we start getting into that, and what a lot of people miss about Shuriken and Fabiao is, like the lighter ones, those ones who are throwing the Meifu Shinkake or the MSR.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 42 grams, I mean, what's that really going to do? Well, I mean, they were thrown from across the equivalent of a cross card table, or like, right, you're kind of in a cast or something like that, or someone spooks you, right, and they've drawn down you with a sword. Well, if I go through and try to get my sword there, I'm going to cut right down on my wrist. So it's just that ability to just move and get that thing out, and we're looking maybe 6 feet, right? So that might be going through and giving me enough distance as I try to drop in your snot box. Even if I drop that in your snot box, I can't kill you with it. Right? There's just literally not enough weight. There's not enough mechanical energy to do that. But so you start looking at what was it those are used for? Well, the distance, end of spear, end of sword. Realistically, we're looking at 10 feet would be the maximum for that type of thing. Right? So when you look at things that are that small for the shuriken, we're looking at a delivery mechanism for poison, or maybe a crude distraction. Right? So what type of poison, without going through into like the poisoner's handbook, blowfish toxin is probably historically the most common one to come to mind.
Toad venom.
Yeah, sure, right? Like, arrow, right? I don't think they have arrow poison frogs there, but like the equivalent of that.
Right.
Right, there's a millipede or a scorpion, roughly where the gland is, right? So you go through, cut that off, and use some type of solvent, and thin it out, strain it out, boom, 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 put it on there. So now we have that pain associated with it. Blowfish toxin is probably the one that would have been the most potent for the volume, but even like, right? So start getting into that. But if we start going through and saying, okay, well, it has to have enough mechanical energy to do the job, right? And so, which winds up becoming the other question that we need to get into with the fast draw side of it is, how much energy does it need to have, right? Because when we start getting into the IDPA IPSC thing, there's a different class for the bullet weight, right? How much energy is being delivered to the target. So if you're going through and looking at, as an example, a light shuriken, 42 grams, and all I need to do is stick it in the cottonwood, that doesn't take much. Okay, well, I can just, right? It's like, okay, well, but now we run into the problem of, does it need to have enough mechanical energy to do the work? Okay, well, if we start getting into that, and these are things that we got to kind of sort out, because if it's just touching, it doesn't have mechanical energy. Realistically, you need, for something to actually rock a head back, you need about 120 grams to start, right? Like, and that's where we're starting. That would be the minimum effective dose, about 4 ounces, right? Yeah, about 4 ounces. So we start kind of going through and looking at that. Okay, well, how do we police it? Do we go through and say, well, we're gonna use a tatami mat, right? Because that's what shuriken we're kind of going into, right? So they would throw in a shuriken. Well, when you and I were playing with shuriken, right, the other night, what were we throwing into? Wood. It's got to stick in a wood. So that's kind of wood's always been that American standard. And it's the reason that whenever I do videos, I throw in a wood. Because nobody cares about how many layers of wet newspaper I can penetrate.
You know, it was interesting that you mentioned that the other night, because I never even thought about that stuff.
Sure.
But yes, the traditional, you know, Japanese, they're always throwing into used tatami mats. And, yeah, very different than wood, for sure.
Right, and then we go through and start getting that standard of, because there needs to be a standard medium that is used.
Standard.
Right, so do we go through and say, okay, well, in order for this to count, you need to be able to stick into 3/8 plywood. Do we say that? Right? Because 3/8 plywood is a standardized medium. If we go through and we say, well, it's got to be able to stick into an end grain. Okay, well, cotton is different than oak. Like when people saw Lobo sticking these rings and stuff like that, what they didn't understand is he was sticking that into oak.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, no, it's not that he into oak he was doing that. And that's how hard he was throwing. So going through and finding out what the standard is for that, and that's one of the things that we need to kind of, as FastDraw improves, if people are hosting other and kind of other things, so we're doing the same.
Yeah, we're still in the infancy stages of it. It's getting more popular, so as it gets more popular, we're going to have to start redefining the standards for that. Sure. And maybe even have different categories. Like maybe that would be the fucking hardcore category where you have to throw hard and fast because we are trying to replicate a duel. And, you know, a little baby throw probably wouldn't be the best thing to do.
Exactly.
You know, you need it to stick. You need it to do damage because that's exactly, like it said, what we're trying to recreate.
Yeah.
I need to use the bathroom real quick. Maybe you can answer some questions or something.
Sure. Let's see what we got for questions here, folks.
You can go ahead and grab that if you want.
Any questions so far? Looks like Pete's taken off. Who do we have in here right now? When's the machete design? We have several designs for machete currently on the site. We have the Super Soviet Space Survival Machete. Those are there. There are the Tiga machetes. Those are both in the From Russia with Love section. Those are really, really hard to get, and all the Russian stuff has become a giant pain in the Katukas to get. We had a line and we got to kind of re-explore that. There's also the Savannah Slim, which is based off of the Semi or Lion sword that's carried by the Maasai tribe. All three of those are available. Have you thought about a hawk design for wood handles? I need to confirm that I'm able to produce that, but I would be interested in exploring it. Danger and I have talked about doing a hawk, but if we're... Can I have one of those? Thanks. Danger and I have talked about doing a hawk, and if and when we do the hawk, the standard for that will be, it either has to fit the hammer handles from Ace Hardware or the cold steel handles.
They have to be readily available.
I'm not getting into this horse shit where we are doing custom handles because
No.
I can't be bothered.
No.
Thanks a lot, Rich. I want to get at you kind of in the next week or so and see if it's possible to kind of get together and do some Shuriken based stuff with you. So we can kind of take that to the next level. I'll probably come harass you and sleep on your floor.
If Professor X can move stuff with his mind, why doesn't he just move his legs? Very good point. You should write them about that.
It's transableism.
Write Stan Lee and get back to me. See what he says.
Okay, yeah. Shoot me a DM. I have a bunch of layovers and stuff like that. We'll chat it up tomorrow in a private chat. I'd love that.
Any other questions for us while we're on here, man? Let me go back a little bit. Weight displacement in shooting is paramount, and weight is your friend. In open class. Good talk, gentlemen. Thanks for watching, Campsite. Love you, buddy. He's pumped.
So for the dashy for no spin.
Bow dashy for no spin.
Yeah.
Back in the day, Devin DeBow, I don't know if you guys know who he is. He's one of the original no spin ambassadors. Was big into ICTOF. Was part of the group that got no spin brought into competition. He was always saying, as soon as someone brings a shuriken in, they're going to end up winning. And Taylor Hull was the first person to do that, and I think the only person to do that since then.
I maintain if someone backed me into a corner, like kind of happened to Rich, you're gonna compete. I do what says Shuriken and probably bow dashies.
You know what, dude? Maybe I should revisit those. I need to get a set.
Well, I just got like another 20 that popped in. So.
They're excellent, and actually, I was telling Ace when I moved, the only bow dashi that I had, I don't know if I misplaced it. I've looked in all the boxes we moved from, but I cannot find it. So I need to get one of those back.
Difference between anti-spin knife comp and a Bo-Shuriken comp?
There is nothing at the moment. Maybe in the future, if Bo-Shuriken get more popular here in the United States, we can have a separate event. But as of right now, it's all just no spin. It's anti-spin, no spin, quarter spin, whatever you want to call it. It's all the same category. In Japan, they have Bo-Shuriken only competitions. As a matter of fact, not too long ago, someone had posted about it. There was an online Bo-Shuriken contest that was, I believe, published in the Instinctive Knife Throwers group, and I just don't think that there was a whole lot of interest in that, and I don't think hardly anybody participated in it, and I kind of wish I would have done it.
Sure.
I forget who even published it. I think it was, I don't even remember. Maybe Mateus knows something about that. I don't know.
Yeah, Big Rich and Matt and myself, we can look at maybe doing like an online Shuriken competition.
That'd be great.
The online competitions are tricky because like you always have to deal with a certain amount of fuckery, right? And so it's like,
well, the way that Rick does the aim games, there's a way around that.
Okay.
No cuts, all one shot, or you can have a mirror showing your close-ups. It's all got to be one shot. There's no editing, so that's the way of doing it. That seems to work pretty well.
Yeah. So, yeah, going through and trying to find it. Rich is saying that Musashi Clan was doing some stuff. Yeah, like the online comps. I'm a firm believer in, like, earlier tonight we were playing pool. You're like, well, let's play for $20 ball. I'm like, no, because everyone's gonna turn into an asshole as soon as we put money on it. So
I agree.
And I mean, even the CrossFit games, the trials, there was guys that went through and like used video editing in a loop to go through and cheat their way to the CrossFit games, right?
See,
so it's like, it sucks that we even need to take that approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's saying it was very traditional and very specific. And I mean, I throw reasonably well for Shuriken. I mean, yeah, like I said, we were pretty consistent with batches of 10 on to, I think we were getting about 90% success at 6 and 7 meters. But I don't throw in a traditional way, and then we got to go through and do it right. I think that it's something we maybe explore for like a Danger Fest event. And then we'll have to look at that as far as, okay, Shuriken needs to fit in this, sub 120 gram category.
Right, they had very specific.
Here's the slot. You can throw whatever you want as long as it fits in the slot.
Right. And Campsite, I agree. He says FastDraw is going to need classes this year for sure. Concealed is going to be fire. No Spin blew up last year. I agree, dude. We're going to have, I promise, we're going to have Concealed FastDraw, No Spin FastDraw. I think we're going to go back to 5 meter FastDraw. Like we used to do, because everybody's so good now. We're going to have even maybe some sitting. I'm not sure what we're going to call that. Like sitting at a card table like you would back in the day playing poker. And when the timer would go off, you'd have to either jump up, draw your concealed knife and throw it, or if you can figure out how to do it, throw sitting down over the top of said table. So,
like gambler's toss.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah.
What's up with you guys?
I missed the part about the sheets. Are you going to separate the magnetic from traditional?
That'll have to be part of the race class.
Yes, we will eventually separate all that stuff. Maybe not next year at Danger Fest, but I have plans, and those things will definitely be separate. We will have an open class where any knife and any sheath goes. So whatever, as long as your knife is connected to something. And then we'll have more traditional stuff like we already do, leather sheath, Bowie knife. I mean, there's so many different things.
Like there's a lot of conversations that seem to happen online, but like
100%.
As far as for the magnetic stuff, it doesn't really matter. It's like for the buck category, it's got to be concealed, right? And so right, and I mean you can wind up going through. It's like you got to do a cartwheel and have it not fall out. I don't know.
I saw
work on your cartwheels, boys.
There was a couple different magnetic sheaths at Danger Fest this year.
Sure.
I saw no advantage. I saw none with the ones that I saw.
We had talked a little bit about the magnets, and so here's the thing. Like as an example, Danger has this tie light, right? As it draws, it's consistent. With a magnet, there's like this slide, this pop, right? And so that if you're going through, it can wind up creating a bit of a wobble.
Yeah.
And like, it isn't necessarily the friend that you think it is.
Right.
Because it adds this jarring that can throw it off.
Correct. Right? That's exactly how I saw it, because it's got to be a pretty strong magnet to hold,
that's right.
A thick throwing knife. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, going through and finding what those tests are that we want to do, but we definitely need to have some type of categorization. I think that a 5 meter would be cool. And I mean, like FastDraw's got so many legs on it. It's the only thing that people almost seem nervous watching it, and like as the guys that are on the line.
Yeah,
right?
it's intense. Yeah, Nameless Champion. Yes, dude. The majority of the knife throwing community still is on Facebook. I know people hate Facebook. I hate Facebook too. The only reason I'm on there is because of the knife throwing stuff. There is an online throwing competition called the AIM Games. It took a 2-year hiatus. It's ran by a man named Rick Lemberg. He's a legend in knife throwing, and he's bringing it back in January. And I highly recommend that all of you get involved, because there's a $35,000 purse. First place being several $1,000s. And if you just participate, there's a very, very good chance that you're going to win some things. He gives away fantastic prizes, just incredible. And he's doing cash this year, so
well, and big boy backing, right?
Dude, the biggest. The AIM Games is going to be the new biggest thing in knife throwing. You just wait and see. You'll see.
And it's cool to get a chance to be part of that.
Yeah, I'm very grateful that Rick was able to come to Danger Fest for the first time this year, and that he sponsored it, and it helped out immensely. So thank you, Rick.
Just pay. Wait, there's not online, or there's online.
I just mentioned games.
Instinctive category for Sheath is going to be sick. You damn Skippy. Forget the money. I just want to be involved. That's a spirit.
I agree. It is nice. You know, ICTOF, the World Championship, has money for, first, second, and third, I believe, the pro categories. And it's a nice, especially if you're someone that's super hardcore into it. You spent your whole year practicing. You gotta travel there. You gotta pay the entry fee, which is kind of high, and so it's nice to get something back, you know. So, but you're right. Money brings assholes, and yeah, I'm trying to avoid that. But yes, it would be nice if we could all make a living off of this, and that's what Rick is doing with the AIM Games.
Yeah, and I mean, what we're really trying to do is get it to be like a sponsored event, right? Like, so how can we get real eyeballs so we can kind of keep it, I don't want to say, like, it can be a meritocracy where anyone that's good enough to be there can be there, and it's not one of those things where it's like, I mean, you got to blow 10 grand to be there. You got to, eat a brown bag of lunch all year just to be able to pay to go.
Yeah, knife throwing is pretty.
Right, and that's
pretty cheap.
And I mean, we don't want to have it kind of ruling that out.
Right.
And I mean, by being able to keep the entrance fees and stuff like that down, we can kind of make it so it's less of that. And my hope is that because people aren't putting as much money into it for an entrance fee, that there's more opportunity for people to not be an asshole. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've always tried to keep the entrance fee lower, just to get people to come, you know.
Yeah.
Just trying to get more people involved.
Top 20, yeah. So there's a few ways to kind of go through. Like,
that's what we did this year.
Yeah, there's a few ways to kind of explore that and do kind of a combination of online, in person. We're doing like an online qualifier. Right, so it's like if you go through and do an online qualifier,
that's tough.
And you fuck it up, like it'll
for
be
FastDraw.
For FastDraw,
everybody would need their own $2,000 timer.
Well, I mean, you got to pay to play, bro.
Shit.
Right.
Well, that kind of rules out a lot of people.
Yeah, but like going through and trying to find ways to bridge that gap. But having everyone show up and. You gotta do whatever, right? You guys had some kind of system for that this year.
No, there is no way of doing ICTOF, Danger Fest, Blade Aces, or anything without being there. The AIM Games, you can film at home. You just need to follow. Okay. You'll see. I'll send you a link, dude. Remind me and I'll send you a link. You have to have a very specific target, and Rick will not tell us the target until the beginning of the year, so no one can get a jump on practicing this new game. Well, if no one else has any more questions for us, damn, this has been a long one. It's been a good chat, Ace. Thanks for coming and talking with me again, man. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, man.
Yeah, dude.
If there's any questions or anything like that you have for either of us, feel free to just shoot us a DM and kind of give us a chance to kind of get out there. Some people are shy in person, and whichever, there's going to be a lot more coming out. We got some more stuff coming out. D2A will probably be around 150 different options between instinctive throwing knives and shuriken by the end of the year.
It's a lot.
Yeah. So I was explaining the danger that, like, kind of the blessing I have and the curse that I have is I get to throw all those different designs, and the curse is that I have to be able to throw all of them. So
you're welcome, everybody. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it, and I'd like to do more of these. I got these microphones now, so when people come over, I can do more of these interviews. I don't think I'm gonna have a podcast per se anymore, but this is basically the same thing.
The guy that used to do the podcast, we're gonna do another one, and apparently he joined a cult.
Yeah, he gave away all of his.
It's amazing.
So
it's amazing.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Later.
Ciao.